Yo lo oigo perfectamente el micro, probando también el canal inglés, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, probando canal inglés, sí. Por si acaso pruebo el español, si quieres.
Inglés 1, 1, 2, probando canal de traducción a inglés. Hola, hola, sí, perfecto.
Okay, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. ¿Sigo? ¿Esto es el inglés? ¿Sigo hablando en inglés? Testing, testing. This is the English channel. Testing, testing. Estoy hablando por el inglés. Si me oís a mí, esto es el canal de inglés. 1, 2, 3. Esto es canal de inglés, ¿eh? Canal de inglés. Estoy hablando en canal de inglés. Testing, testing. The English channel. This is the English channel. We are going to have simultaneous interpretation into English. Just checking that it works for you. Thank you. We are also testing for the technical team. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. We are testing. Okay.
We are microphone 1, 2, 3. We are testing the microphones 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
¿Te hablo? Canal inglés, canal inglés, canal inglés. Testing, testing, testing,
Ahora,
testing,
a
testing.
nivel técnico está todo claro.
Ok.
Buenas tardes, ¿se me oye?
Good afternoon. We are testing
In English. Buenas tardes.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon and to welcome you all from across Europe. Most of you are participants of the CO2 PACMAN project. And as I was saying, I am Juan Pablo Torregosa. I am project manager at the CEEI Valencia, and it's very important for us to be able to host this event where we are putting at your disposal as for you and members of the startups and all the other members participating in this open innovation action with 9 challenges from 3 islands: Brac, Crete, and the Elbe Island in Italy. And as I was saying, we have 2 very different days ahead of us. Today, we'll be focusing on how to obtain funds and how to find investment for these projects, for these impact projects. Furthermore, we will have some information pills on how to work on this when we want to communicate what we are doing and not just for the sake of communicating. And tomorrow we will focus on the open innovation activity that we've coordinated with the rest of partners of CO2 PACMAN, and more specifically Mamen, who is with us today, will chair all the sessions for tomorrow. And also it is a pleasure to introduce Pepe Vilar, or Jose Vilar. Sorry, we need to use the microphone. Pepe is the head of EU programs at the IVACE, and he's also an associate partner in this project. Pepe, the floor is all yours. Well, I'm wearing 2 hats today. I am representing our DG for entrepreneurship, who couldn't make it today, and on the other hand, I am also the technical manager of European projects like you, and it's a pleasure to be in this opening ceremony. Truth be told, I was collaborating with you, I think it was back in February when I went to those labs that you held. I joined online, and we spoke about innovation, the challenges for the SMEs, startups, also with regard to financing and funding. And today, this business forum is a very powerful initiative. And I had written some words, but I think it's better to speak off my mind. And I think I like to congratulate CEI Valencia for launching this, and then to all the project partners. As truth be told, you're doing something very interesting and very practical. We're talking about methodologies regarding challenges, solutions for challenges, and how do we connect the solutions with the knowledge and the know-how that we have European-wide, especially when we talk about climate change, climate action, sustainability. It is of the utmost importance. Nowadays, technological innovation or regulations are not just there per se. We need new business models, new ideas out of the box. Also, we need R&D, also methodology-wise, when we're talking about business scalability, execution, as otherwise, if you don't have proper execution in a project, in a business, it doesn't matter whether you have good tech. At the end of the day, it will not work. And then scalability is of the essence. We are talking about cooperation, new solutions to new challenges. This is a very current dynamic where we bring together great minds to work in a collaborative way. And that is why we have European projects, especially Interreg and Euromed. I am really happy to see you all here in Valencia, and I'd like to wish you a very fruitful day today and tomorrow. I know tomorrow you have a very powerful day ahead. I saw that you are brainstorming about challenges, and you have various stakeholders participating, and you're going to be learning. And I encourage you to do exactly that, to learn and to transform. And well, welcome to Valencia, and thanks to Las Naves for hosting you in these premises in our city. And on behalf of the regional government and the on IVACE, I'd like to welcome you all and to wish you a fruitful day. Thank you. Thank you very much, Pepe. David De Rosa, Director for Innovation at Valencia Innovation Lab, will be with us later on. He apologizes for the delay. And today we are here in this space that is called Las Naves, where we bring together a large part of the innovation actors in Valencia as a city. And before we start working, and we start with a roundtable on investment and impact investments, where we'll have various investment funds investing in projects and startups that really have a business model that is geared towards having an impact on society, on the environment. Before we do that, let me give you a global picture of what it is CO2 PACMAN. So Simone Bastagnoni, professor, please come stay on stage for a brief introduction on the project.
I will not speak Spanish, otherwise we laugh so much that all the things here will come down. So I will speak in a funny English because obviously it's not my first language. But yes, I can go with it. I try to go with it. So my name is Simone Bastianoni. I'm the project coordinator of CO2 PACMAN. CO2 PACMAN has these 10 partners. One of them is our host here, Say Valencia. Thank you very, very much for your great work always. The major objective of CO2 PACMAN is to support the Mediterranean islands to make a transition to climate neutrality. And obviously, this thing can be obtained by a very top-down approach, but we believe that it's not maybe it's the fastest way, but not the most effective one. So we want to pursue co-creation. This co-thing is the CO2 PACMAN. CO2 for us is co-creation, co-planning, always together. As test islands, we have chosen the Elba Island in Italy, Brač in Croatia, and Crete in Greece. So different size, different types of islands, and the islands, the Y islands, is because they are particularly difficult, in a sense, because the range of possibilities for some things is very narrow, because they have a very small and defined territory. And for example, you can imagine that waste management in an island is always very problematic. And all these things are present in the islands. But one thing that is quite important for us is the fact that you can understand very well the borders. And so it's, in a sense, it's easier to make measurements and to communicate them, because the communication is always the main problem in this case. And then, because islands have always another possibility that is less present in when there is let's say, we are inland, or I mean, even if on the coast would be the same, but the possibility to use blue energies to energy from the sea, that is a possibility is more. So the questions that we want to answer is why it's so difficult to plan for climate neutrality? Is it possible to provide tools that help in this effort? How to prevent the general public frequent skepticism when it's not opposition towards renewable energies? Schools and universities, what role can they have? Is it possible to facilitate the transition financially? So we have used, I mean, these series of questions, and we want to realize these instruments. And as you see, is big here, the open innovation collaborative action is one of them. We have called it like this. It's not just open innovation action, but it's collaborative, because all the solutions that are present here can provide are not meant to be in a competition, are meant to be as a menu of a restaurant from which you can choose the thing that is most suitable for a certain place, or maybe two, or maybe three, because we are not just using one solution. That is impossible to use one solution to solve the problem of climate neutrality, to reach the goal of climate neutrality. But we want to have a collaboration among all the solvers we have called that we have invited. So what is present today? The solutions in all present sectors and possible sectors. I mean, as I said, from waste management to blue energies, to traditional renewables, to things that are very precise for a certain place, for a certain enterprise, to solve the problem of that enterprise. We want to enlarge the range and create a huge database in which all these possible solutions are present, and allow then policymakers to see that, oh, look, there is this enterprise that is providing this solution, and I can go and ask them to use the solution in my situation. So the involvement of local and external in the sense that are not local in the place, the solvers is a very important thing, and we thank again Say Valencia for having organized this thing with a great success. And so at the end, I can say that we want to make impossible politicians to say, no, I cannot do this because I don't have the instruments. We provide the instruments. We don't have the technologies. We show them that we have the technologies. We don't have the money. We will talk about the money today, tomorrow. So it's in a sense, is a no excuses project, because we want to make it possible. We know that it's possible. I come from a place that will be certified as carbon neutral in a few days. We already know that the province of Siena is carbon neutral, because we have worked a lot with them, with the policymakers there, in order to make this target possible. And we made it. So it's possible to make it. It's not something that is, and there are not so many poor people around because we have been carbon neutral since 2011, as someone would say. So it's possible. Let's make it. Let's make it together. CO2 PACMAN. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simone, for your words. Ahora ya tenéis
Okay, so now that you have a general view, a general perspective of what CO2 PACMAN stands for, and to understand where it comes from and its European perspective, well, we have the MED program, which will be the backbone for the 3 living areas. And here we have online Florian Yvonne.
Hola. Say hello, Florian. Sí, ahí la veo, perfecto.
Hola.
Buenos días, Florian. Muchas
Good afternoon, Florian, and thank you for being here today.
gracias por tu presencia y que nos puedas hacer ese overview de lo que es las Green Living Areas dentro del programa MED, sobre todo aquello que está un poquito más enfocado a
And thank you for being here today to talk about the startups. Thank you, Florian. The floor is yours.
Vale, creo que tengo la traducción simultánea.
I think we have simultaneous interpretation into English, and that is getting really confusing for me. I hope it works. I hope you can hear me. And well, good afternoon, everyone. And before I start, as Simone said, please apologize for my broken Spanish. I am not a native speaker of Spanish, even though I've been living in Spain for a while. I am Florian Yvon from the Mediterranean Cities Association, which is a part of the project. And let me share with you a presentation that I've arranged for you.
Que podáis. A ver. C4LA. C4LA es la comunidad.
The C4LA is the community for the green living areas, which is part of the Interreg Euromed program, which is one of the European projects for the transnational cooperation of the EU, and it is related to the Mediterranean. It comes with funding for various projects. We're talking about 100 projects, more or less, and with 4 missions, which are the ones that you can see on the screen. We are talking about promoting greener living areas, which you can see in green, and then you can also see strengthening an innovative, sustainable economy. Then we have the protection, restoration, and valorizing of the natural environment and heritage. And finally, we have sustainable tourism. So, as within these 4, we work on the Green Living Areas mission, trying to improve or to develop urban areas that are more green, more sustainable, so that we can reduce the impact of climate change, and we promote climate resiliency. We are a community-based project, so this means that our objective is to build a community among thematic projects where CO2 PACMAN works, and we try to facilitate the transfer of solutions. After this brief introduction, let me now talk about something that is really interesting for you. It's of great interest for all of you, I am sure. And we will be talking about how the EU has opportunities for SMEs and startups developing solutions for the sustainable innovation. So you see in this beautiful mountain picture, as for some people, accessing European funds is a mountain to climb. many people think these are inaccessible, except for a few lucky ones who know how to get there. But I'm going to show you that nothing could be further from the truth. Actually, even some stakeholders in the private sectors, SMEs and startups, without the resources that big companies have, can access. There are some ways to access those funds, especially in an indirect way. And let me explain how. The first option you have is tendering. In the European projects, well, many of them, part of the budget is assigned to hiring other entities, other companies in the private sector to implement a part of the project. So one way for you to access the European fund would be this outsourcing in the tenders. And the issue is how to find them. But well, this is one option. Then let me also talk about another system that has been developed greatly in the last few years. Formerly, European projects did not accommodate this option, but now this is something that the European Commission would like to foster, and that is cascade funding for you. What does this mean? This means that there are some European projects, some, not all, that as part of the budget have a pocket of money that must be redistributed to stakeholders of a smaller size. And these budgets are unlike your classical projects that to the tune of 70,000 euros to 1 million euros, if we are talking about large corporations. These budgets are smaller and are simpler than other European projects, so this might be of interest for you. But now you will say, okay, these two options exist. We have the tendering, we have the cascade funding, but now how can I, with my company, use this? Where can I find these tenders and this cascade funding? Well, both can be found on a single platform. I will not deep dive into this, but it's the Funding and Tenders portal of the EU. And here you have a search box where you can find the open calls from the EU, but also you can find tenders for the selected projects. And even if you filter out the information and you select the various call types, you can see there are some calls for cascade funding. For example, at the moment there are 525. Therefore, this is a way for you to access as a smaller corporation, a smaller company. European funds are not just for public bodies.
Os quería también.
I also wanted to discuss other opportunities available. They're more general opportunities for European projects. You may find funding, but also training activities to participate in, living labs that may be interesting for you to get training and to network with potential clients, as well as to develop your contacts network should you wish to participate in a European project. You can go online and check it out. This is what we do at the C4LA, the Community for Green Living Areas. Ours is a 24 project community, and I said 24, but I meant 26. So we have 24 thematic project plus ours and another one that is focused on policy. And if you go online, hit our website, and you'll find our projects that are ongoing. And perhaps you'll find them interesting should you wish to participate in a tender or a partnership going forward. So I encourage one and all to check our website out, take a look at our projects, and see if that matches what you're doing. These projects set out to have greener areas. They pursue sustainable innovation. They are actually looking for innovation like yours. So I would encourage one and all to look for the best matching project and contact them, because I'm sure there are opportunities that are appropriate for you. They're up for grabs, or maybe just participating at a living lab or a hackathon, you name it. But we're not the only players doing this. And so far as there are 4 missions within the Interreg Euromed program, and there is one that aims at an innovative and sustainable economy. And there are numerous opportunities up for grabs for private sector actors. So apart from sustainable tourism and protecting the environment, you may be interested in others depending on what you're doing. But innovation, number one, strengthening an innovative, sustainable economy, I'm sure is interesting for you guys. So that was my presentation for you. I hope you found it useful, and it may be a starting point to make the most of EU funding going forward. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Florian. A big round of applause. Yes, Florian, a big shout out for your participation, for joining us online. I know that our schedules are killers and everybody is busy like a bee, and the end of the semester looks like the world coming to an end if you look at our agenda. So anyway, thank you for that. And now we are going to discuss investments for startups. And we have 2 investment funds that are impactful, who are committed to those business models and startups that said about improving society and the environment. So having positive social impact in the territory and its catchment area. We also have a public state public Center for Sustainable Development that would be at Feo Balboa with First Drop. Come on up, Mark Guash from Zubi Capital, and Raul Sanchez with Cofides. So you guys have the floor. Well, thank you. I'd like to thank you all for being here. And I'd also like to thank CEEI Valencia and CO2 PACMAN organizers. As you heard, it is my pleasure to chair. I might even jump in and discuss with you guys. And it is a true privilege insofar as here we've gathered in Valencia and in Spain an impressive critical mass devoted to impact investment. So with me, we have Mark Watch, who is investment manager at Zubi Group. It's an ecosystem in itself, all about impact, and will actually kick off by learning what they do at Zubi Group, and then Raul, who is the Director of Impact Investment at Cofidis, which is the state institutional fund that I'd say is more powerful in Spain, but also internationally. So, in terms of local national ecosystem, we have good reasons to be proud, but we need to continue going at it. So today, we're going to talk about this special type of entrepreneur, which is the impact entrepreneur. People who do things with a purpose. And we're going to look at what are the specific investment opportunities that are up for grabs for startups and impact investors. So welcome, one and all. I hope you enjoy the session. And how about we start with you, Mark? Let's kick off. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what your organization does to be impactful. Well, thank you. I represent Zubi Capital, which is an impact management company. We invest in companies that set out to solve social or environmental challenges. We have two well-defined strategies. First, via an early stage fund for pre-seed companies. The goal would be to invest in companies that will help to generate an equal opportunities future for all, regardless of the color of the skin, gender, age, background, or origin. It's a fund devoted to companies who are trying to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a social fund, and we're trying to help in Europe. Then there's a second fund for other phases. It's agnostic vertically, but we need to always make sure that there is a social or environmental challenge that is set to be tackled. So we have venture debt, and isn't less disruptive compared to the traditional venture capital. It allows for companies to receive funding, but the advantage is mainly that the founding team can have control over the company for longer. So that's about it in a nutshell. We can go deeper in a bit. Raul, take it away. All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you for coming to Valencia. Can you guys hear me well? Okay. So by show of hands, do you know what impact investment is? Okay. So let me start from scratch. So question, raise your hand if you have a startup or connected to a startup. Everybody else work in public institutions is my guess. All right. So let's start from the beginning. What is impact investment? Well, really, what's revolutionary here, because we want financial impact and environmental and social advancement. So impact investments wish not only to generate economic impact, it could be a startup, a foundation, an impact investment capital, like Zubi, for example. So it's a completely different ballgame. So they want more than economic impact, but to challenge social challenges connected to what you're doing as a company. So that is very, very different. So you've heard about unicorns, haven't you? Right? Well, we call them zebras. We're all about different animals. So these would be companies that in the savannah, in the world of wildlife, look for something different. And that is revolutionary. And I'm very lucky to manage one of the largest social impact funds in the world. I'm talking 400 million with European funds. So when Julian asked me to join you guys here, I thought, well, great, because you can do a lot together with EU funds. Hopefully, it'll have huge social impacts. But we know that there are numerous challenges, and we're approaching them differentially, and they have to be replicable elsewhere. In fact, we're very lucky. The United Nations has selected us as an international case used to tackle in an innovative way social challenges that we have ahead. I think this is very important because everything you do has an impact, but impact investment has a purpose, having a social impact, tackling specific challenges that you need to measure, assess, and whatever you do needs to be sustainable from a financial standpoint. So that's an impact investment. So that's right off the bat what and this kind of an investment is. Well, it is really appropriate, mind you, because oftentimes, and I always complain, about this, but we preach to the choir or give things for granted, and this is something that you need to do slowly but surely, and not only within the entrepreneurship institution and funds areas, because they're aware of this, but at the first drop, because it's for us, it's like a dripping system, drop by drop. So we have our investors, and we need to go after them to get the funds. But we're looking for those who are aligned with a positive impact. But we also work for our agnostic investors who perhaps are not that clear about how profitable is to invest in projects that have an impact, but we give back the same return over the investment, but sometimes the return is higher and leave a better world. Well, that's very powerful, mind you, because I am in contact with all sorts of investors and different entrepreneurs. What have you told investors? Some people are all about money. They're obsessed with profitability. Okay, I respect that, but if you tell that same person, you tell them, look, with your capital, you can not only get money, but also lead to a transformation of society and improve the lives of people. And I tell investors, if you see the reality, if you see things firsthand, you'll see that is the case. Well, when we explain impact investment, is that sometimes people think that what we do is philanthropy, but no, we want market profitability, but we invest in companies that are all about tackling social and environmental challenges. But if you want philanthropy, be my guest. I need a return over the investment for the investment. Otherwise, I won't be able to provide value in terms of finance, in terms of a social impact. This has to snowball. Well, that's beautiful if you think about it. But if you consider the profile of those investors who care about what is social, what you're doing is important. It's an advocacy that goes beyond what normal quote unquote investors do. Look, some of the operations we've invested include. I'm thinking was particularly one. This company which seeks to give a shelter to the homeless, people, giving them a household. It's called Tutecho, Tutecho. Okay, but this BM Growth, these guys are listed in the stock market. It's an emerging company, and they use the tax benefits because they don't pay certain taxes, and they pay 20 to 25% less for the properties, and they rent it out to over 70 entities that have to do with homeless people who are members of vulnerable communities. And not only that, but they organize a full program so that these individuals are integrated back in society. In some cases, these people are migrants and nobody will want to rent out a household to them. So this company is not only profitable, but also is using the market to solve a huge market flaw. In Spain, there are 30 to 40,000 people without a home. So again, this is a way to approach a social challenge. But as Mark was saying, this has to be financially sustainable too, because you need to generate resources. And of course, there are certain things that you can't do this way. We need the state for that, but this attracts investors. And at the end of the day, if this is profitable, the project will continue to grow. So I think it's very interesting, and funds like Zuby Capital or First Drop, where Orfeo works, have a different perspective in terms of investors and those who are the beneficiaries, because what they do is very important. They help those involved in startups. They accompany them. So there's a social impact, which has to be measured, by the way. In a nutshell, and this is a symptom of this sector in Spain, good news for impact entrepreneurs. And that's why I was saying earlier that this panel includes a representative of the public and private sectors. There are instruments or vehicles with we have conventional venture capitals, venture builders. The system you have a Zuby Capital, and then this institutional sector, the public sector, that is strongly committed and invest via specialized funds, but with direct investments too. So this is an industry or a sector that is objectively small, although we're all doing our bit, and making it grow daily. I am sure that if you look back, we've built an ecosystem here that that is powerful and offers options to all startups. So I would encourage one and all to look into this, gain insight, to discover that yet another good thing about impact investments is its collaborative nature, because it's sometimes there is competition among agnostic investors. That does not characterize our day-to-day, but we can support companies. We collaborate in a number of initiatives, and the same goes for public-private partnerships. So that was good news for you right there. Let's move on to gain some more insight about what we strive for as investors or partners. And I'd like to ask you to tell us what do you look for, because you've talked about Techo for the homeless, and there are 13 direct investments. If you were to, I don't know, maybe identify 3 pointers or 3 components, what determines your investments? Well, first and foremost, in 2025, the word impact is a huge buzzword. You hear impact left, impact right, big companies, small companies, everybody is talking impact. So we want to go to the essence of what that means and see what's illegible and what not. That has to be a purpose. The purpose of startups has to be clear, because we're very flexible, and we can fund a startup, an impact investment fund, an NGO, a non-for-profit. So we need to identify first. So in the world of impact investment, in initial phases, there's this methodology called the theory of change, which helps identify social challenges that you set out to approach, how you're going to do so with what means, what impact you want to generate, and then there's impact that's easy to measure. For example, we have Grupo Social 11 in Spain, one of the largest entities, works with people with disabilities. They own a company called Il Union, and they have laundry service and hotels. What do they do to generate jobs for people with the disability? And it's easy to measure how many people with disability work there, but there are intangible factors that add a lot of value to what they do, and it's not as objective. For instance, look, so say you're 35, you have a disability, and you've never worked before. And thanks to this, you get your first job. Somebody who has a mobility challenge, and all of a sudden this person can work from home. It's usually women who accompany, but they can do this, and it changes everything. How do you measure that when you change some people's life? So it's not only direct jobs, there's much more. There are intangible factors, and we are decided to change the words that we use when it comes to investments. We not only look into the financial profitability, but the social profitability too, that can be assessed in numbers. Because and in fact, we're assessing this at our operations department. For each euro that we support, give or take, there is a €3 impact on society because of the positive social impact. So that's a ball changer. All the tiers, all the indicators used in the financial world have been used for decades. We need to change this, and we need to start speaking a different language. You need to take this into account as an investor, and in the public sphere too, because this leads to savings. A country can save money when you don't have to spend money to support that. So when it comes to legibility, we need to take into account this apart from financial sustainability. What about you, Mark? Well, from the point of view of private investment, we agree for example, with you guys at First Drop, we invest in initial phases whereby we're looking for companies that are starting out, and we need to learn what they want to solve. With the problem they want to solve, they are not always clear on what the theory of change is, and we help them with that. For us, it's important to know what that challenge they want to solve is. We help them with the theory of change development, but we need to be clear on what else can be done thanks to that, other than attaining a good ROI. We also support companies that are more advanced, but if I give you 2 mil in a 30 million equity round, my money is not going to help you that much. I want to make sure that our funding can help you, take you to the next level, to see how we can help at Zuby Group or Zuby Capital, or with other funds like First Drop. They're companies we've co-invested in. So we help to develop a business plan, to connect with other funds, find the best team. Well, companies go through different phases. Well, we try to help where we believe we can provide value. So additionality is fundamental. And we have not mentioned this, but it is what we're all looking for beyond, of course, economic/financial impact, which is important. That is of the essence, so that we can collaborate. And the public sector additionality is of the essence, because our fund is for 100 million. The impact investment ecosystem in Spain is some 3 billion, including ethical banking. So if you include 400 millions, it's a lot of money. So we're beyond eligibility. Okay, from a public or state standpoint, we need to think, what are we doing? How are we contributing this? If we weren't there, would this exist? And also, are we in the face of a market flaw or not? Because if a private company can do this, because the other day somebody at an event was saying, "Hey, I presented this project to the social impact program. What do you guys do that's different from a bank?" And I replied, "Well, if that is your question, you don't know what we're all about. If all you need is what a bank delivers, go to a bank." But what we do is different. Like with housing, remember? Yes, in our own theory of change that we put together in September last year, we were thinking, what are the social challenges in Spain that are not well catered to? We identified 11 themes, and housing was, one of the most important challenges, if not, is right there at the top, because this affects not only migrant people, but older people, single parent homes. Some people are and almost homeless because of the costs of living. And there's some people you could give money to, and that would not change their lives. So for us, social impact housing is important. We're looking at where the market flaw is, so we need projects that allows for housing that is accessible, that people can afford, and that helps. And a household is not just four walls and a roof. We don't want ghettos. We want to go to the most vulnerable communities, because it is there where we can provide additionality. I think it's super interesting what you're saying, because we're talking about the two dimensions of additionality that they're represented by the fund and its impact by coming in, in the startup, and what the startup is doing out there in the market. And among the goals of this talk today is, for those of you who are not as familiar with this, to know the three main elements of impact investment. So number one, additionality; number two, intentionality; number three, measurement. Additionality is usually trickier to understand, because we want our investments to be relevant, to do more than just get money or resources and contacts. We want to really move the needle, of the company. But we want to invest in companies with a purpose. And the purpose should be to have an impact, to change the game, to change the rule of the games. Well, that's something that we don't usually measure, and we need to attain a systemic change. Search about that, but because it's all about not only what a startup is doing, like with Tu Techo, the one for homeless people. So we look at the funding, and over 2,000 people are going to benefit from this. So we look not only at that, but how that can impact other realms, other domains. If I look at things individually, let's say an individual has found a place to live in, but systemically, this was a person who was homeless, and a homeless person who may or may not have mental issues. But if you provide them a shelter, at 3-4 months, they take off. So you need social accompanying, social support. So when it's more systemic, it's more comprehensive. You look at different domains, different aspects, and you can see that at 5-6 months, that individual is focused. That person may start working and may not need our support, and can, pay their own rent. Well, that's sustainability for you right there. That's a true sustainability. Yes, it's just, that sometimes you see, okay, so many people have had the opportunity to have a house. Well, okay, yeah, that's important, but there are intangibles that you need to look at too.
Muy interesante esta parte, pero vamos.
Well, this is a very interesting part, but now let's give the public what they want. When investors get together, it's all about trends. And as part of those trends in a market that we spoke about recently, as with the impact investment market is something that is living and moving and evolving. But where do you see the trends, the most interesting trends when we are talking about the impact sector? Where is your focus? Well, we decided to come here to change many things. Why? If you look at the data of all the business investment funds in Spain, and this is something across countries, 70% are working on energy transition and environmental issues. And are these the big issues? No, it's because that where the money is, and that's where the most profitability is. Does it mean that there are no solutions in the social area that can be scalable? No. And what we are trying to do, actually, when we are accessing funds, we try to change direction so that we can show them and stress the importance of for funds to. I mean, we're talking about 70% for energy transition, environment, and we want that at least 50% has social impact. And let me tell you, when I joined the fund in October 2023, we had 400 million, and they said, well, there will be no operations to this tune. And for the first few months, I was doing active listening. I met with 200 organizations, and it's only you are everywhere, but that's what I had to do. And the pipeline that we identified was over 500 million euros. I can tell you I couldn't cover all of that, as there were very potentially interesting operations. And in the social sector, there are solutions, but you need to help. You need to see whether there's a lack of projects just because there are no propitiating environments. And when talking about housing, one question we launched to many organizations in Spain was, in the case that the social impact investment fund would support operations where we limit income and the sort of collectives, if there was a budget line focusing on this, would you create something? 80%, 90% said yes. So the conclusion is this lack might be due, is maybe because we are not creating the environment that habilitates this. And also, in this side, there was a great deal of institutional investment, but we see the most funds. In your case, you have this fund that is focusing only on diversity, isn't it? Yes. From the Diversity and Inclusion Fund, we try, and that is the DEI for you, we're trying to help companies to overcome these challenges. As for trends, I think this might be temporary. Some years ago, we saw the cryptos, blockchain, the metaverse, and all that stuff. Now, the buzzword is AI. I think it's here to stay, and we are already seeing this AI trend being applied to solving social issues in this fund or environmental issues in other funds. Well, we see very interesting opportunities. For example, they can be applied in the medicine to see potentially cancer-causing conditions such as molds. And also, when we talk about environmental issues, it can be applied across the board. But historically, there was more public funding geared towards environmental issues, infrastructures, and now it seems that well, a lot of money has been invested, and now we should maybe look for solutions in more social areas where we see there's a shortage, and that is why we decided to have a firm commitment with a DEI fund, bring in more opportunities to women-led corporations, migrant-led corporations, those who are operating remotely in remote areas. For example, basically back in the day, it was only Madrid and Barcelona for you in Spain. But now, if you can try and operate from more remote locations, Extremadura, for example, where you're creating business in an area that is at the risk of social exclusion and depopulation, that is, well, where we're trying to help with. And from the public perspective, I see that we play a key role on placing the focus on specific aspects. For example, you're talking about rural areas. The issue with housing in Spain is that we have around 3.4 million empty houses. 50% of those, do you know where they are? In rural areas. And out of these rural areas, most of these houses are falling apart. And then you have plenty of people, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people, for whom it is very difficult to have a place to live in. And then we have a foreign population that and for them it's impossible to access to both, to do two things: a house and a job. And one solution we are working on is that, okay, let's create places to live, as even if those places, when you can live outside of the big city, and we're talking about smaller locations, not that far away from big capitals, well, you can find a job there. So small cities do not want to disappear. And we see like these smaller locations offer housing, work as a part of a solution to a social challenge that is very complex. And recently I had this idea of that knowing we know of many rights, but sometimes we forget about the right to not emigrate. In rural areas, this migration or emigration is happening for a long time. So we're talking about the right to keep on existing and surviving without losing quality of life and creating new futures. The pandemic ensured led to a fact that, for example, Madrid lost population, and we're talking about an important percentage that left the city and moved within 50 kilometers of the city. And I mean, if services are provided, you don't need to be in the city to do what you do. And some people, well, had to rethink where they wanted to live and how they wanted to live. So maybe that is one of the big issues. We are focusing on cities as the hub for everything, but we can change the model. And we were talking about impact investment. I think we play the role of creating spaces and a different way of tackling challenges, such as providing housing, solving the issue of the depopulated Spain. But this is a problem that we see across Europe. But something that is clear is that we are not afraid of anything. We speak of, it's not empty words when we talk about big challenges. We are talking about depopulation, access to housing, the digital gap for some groups.
Eso que comentaba antes de mover
So then you talked about changing direction, and that's it. Well, what we're talking about, it is not about giving up to the size of these challenges, but rather doubling down on our efforts. And thus said, from each individual perspective, let's share in a nutshell some tips for the startups looking for investment and trying to approach each one of us. What do you look for in these startups? So what would be your recommendations? So when we're talking about the seed stages, one of the main issues is that you know very well what is the social challenge that you want to tackle, and that is part of your economic activity. And this is one of the key elements. And when we're talking about social entrepreneurship, you need to believe in that role. When you meet social entrepreneurs, you see the difference with normal or standard entrepreneurs. When your activity leads to the improvement of the well-being of people, I can tell you that you don't stop doing what you do overnight, and your capability, the resilience that you have to keep on fighting for what you're waiting for. I don't know in your case, but in my case, my experience is like 2 or 3 to 1. People say, look, stop already. And then the team is very important. You need to know what you want to do. Well, PowerPoints are fine, but then the key is execution. And it must be credible. You must believe in what you're doing. I think we will all agree on this. In a way, you try to find the shine in the eyes of the entrepreneurs. And if it doesn't work here, we'll work elsewhere. And we're talking about impact investment, be it social or environmental. They know, all these entrepreneurs know very well which issues they want to solve, and they will go to any lengths to solve these issues. And resilience is of the utmost importance. Also, is your team, and in a way, you need to be able to transmit not just with this shine in your eyes, but also with the power of passing on this energy to potential investors to say, well, we cannot, we must lock in this investor. And also, mind you, you're looking for travel partners, really, travel companions. I've invested a lot, and when I want to invest, I go for a few drinks with the team. As when you are investing with a startup, when that is starting in 7 or 8 years, is like embarking on an unknown journey. Things can go the wrong way, in a really bad way, big time. So I think there must be a personal connection so that you know how would you react in the face of a problem, and what is your resilience level, as everything seems really cool when you're starting out, when you're talking about entrepreneurship. But hang on, it's not just the good stuff. You need to know very well about the dark side of things. When things don't go your way, you need to ask who else is investing, and then see how it reacts. As this is a bit of a marriage in a way. You need to know everything before you jump in. Well, the first stage of marriages is the physical side, then is chemistry, and then it's all about maths, and then is when you separate. But well, of course, we must agree, especially when we all move in similar stages, these early stages of startups, as it's something that we say commonly, that it's all about people. But in the first stages, it's not just it's important, it's the only thing you have, people. It's not just about spreadsheets. You need to look them in the eye, and to find that glance, the eye of the tiger is what you need to find in your team and your individuals. And I am convinced that at the end of the day, the added bonus coming from resilience, obsession, and again, resilience, I think impact entrepreneurs have something much bigger to fight for on a daily basis. Actually, you've shared some data. When you see with hindsight the evolution of these investments, I think this is very important data. You see the behavior of impact investment funds versus normal funds. This is very interesting. Well, I had this slide, but I have this meter, this counter that you removed, Julian. I don't know how much time we have left. It's stopped. We have 32 minutes still. 32. Well, that can fly by very easily. I thought it was we would be finishing at 5:45. Nah, well, we go on. So we can link this up with what we said at the beginning, the various performance levels of impact investment funds and impact agnostic funds. And there is something always hovering by, that is philanthropy, which is another travel companion in this world where, luckily, with sufficient resources in this country, those who just arrive to this game are those coming from business investment funds who do not, who also want to provide profitability to the market. And I'd like to know whether for you, do we actually have to choose between impact and profitability, or you think that impact startups can be more resilient, more sustainable, and can have more loyal clients and talent, and that it is not at the detriment of other aspects in other projects? If we look at a 10-year perspective, I think in Spain we still haven't paved the way. But my intuition is that if we look at 5, 10 years, I think the impact startups will show that they are able to navigate through a complex environment that we live in today. Well, given the current situation of the world since January, I cannot predict what will happen by the end of the year. So resilience is a social challenge, and we need more resilience in these fields. As when we're dealing with people, we are in an entirely different world. And the team that works with me, and truth be told, I love my team. One of the first things we do is, before you start writing down or writing on an operation or a project, you need to know the project and the people on site so that you know what you're talking about. For example, when we talk about the homelessness, to Techo, I knew about this project in Murcia, Cabo de Gata, in the east of Spain, is what they call the Sea of Plastics. Probably you know this from some documentaries. Is the Sea of Plastics in Almeria, as is so huge, the area covered by greenhouses and plastic, that it reflects. And you have more than 3,000 people living in shanty towns, so to say, working are in that area, and 40% of vegetables in Spain are produced there. Many of these greenhouses are illegal, but most are not. And I went down and I visited all the area, and I remember it was 28th of December 2023. That is April's fool for you in Spain. And I came back in a state of shock, as in 2023 in Spain. Back in the day, I couldn't believe my eyes. So when you see the reality, then I came back the following year, and this project had been launched already, a series of housing projects to get people out of this situation. And I had seen people in a shanty town, and I saw these people again in a house. And for me, that was, wow, Jesus, this now makes sense. As you change the life of people, and same applies today to the migration. To put faces to the issues is very important, and please apologize me. The rest is fine, is important, but it's essential that we put a face to the issues we were talking about here. Well, I think in stage where we are already educating our society, we still don't have the first impact unicorn. We might get an impact zebra with $1 billion billion euros, and we are still working in all of this. That is educating the ecosystem with a perspective, we'll be able to know whether we can invest in companies solving all these issues, environmental and social, and being in market environments which can be even better than the ones we have at the moment. As it's not just about education; it's something that is more and more required by society as the way we live is increasingly unsustainable. So if we all add up all of this, these companies might be the ones that might survive and make sure that this all makes sense. The great thing with zebras is that they are worth 1 billion euros, but also they do that by transforming the lives of thousands of people along the way. That is a transforming effect of a movement that has a multiplying force, and I fully agree with you. What we see in Spain is that we are still building the stats, the sample, and what we know from other ecosystems is that it's not just a topic of an issue of ROI. There are other factors involved, transforming factors. What we see in our portfolio, and also when I see other people's portfolio, is that we have companies who are more focused, have less attrition, less turnover, more efficiency in managing resources with higher return, and they do not just create return in their investment portfolio. We know that this find however basis is just a matter of stats. Okay, I invest in 40 and then 2 or 3 will give us the return that we need. When we're talking about impact investment, apart from finding the unicorn or the zebra worth 1 billion euros, helping 1 billion people, we are talking about survival rates and resilience levels that be even though is a legacy that goes beyond all of this, and that remains in our portfolio as companies that maybe will not reach that scalability, but will keep on growing, creating wealth, creating jobs. And for me, it makes a huge difference as with other investments. Also, something that is happening and that is positive is that I think consumers, we are increasingly conscious and aware. If you look back 30 years, look at your average consumer profile. I see that we are more educated in what we buy. And also for people, when we talk about commitment and purpose in the job place is more and more important. So maybe 20, 30 years ago, this wouldn't happen. But now go and ask someone who is 25 years of age, what drives this person to work in a company? I've spoken to many entrepreneurs and very young people, and I can assure you that this is very important for them. So those working in your startup must believe, must buy into these values. I think this makes a huge difference. Yes, huge indeed. Well, I am being told that now we have actually come to the end of our session. And well, thank you very much for your kind attention. We close with this message for entrepreneurs. That is, thank you for being here today. Thank you, of course, for being brave, for being entrepreneurs and create wealth. But thank you for doing it by facing some of the most important challenges that we face as a society. And well, now you know that you're not alone. I have one sentence, one graffiti that I saw once. It said, "The impossible only takes a little longer, and it's way more fun." Well, thank you, everyone. thank you to these two stars to my right. I hope you enjoy as much as I did. Thank you.
Agradeceros mucho.
Also, I'd like to thank you for your words. You've stressed the importance of motivation, and you've cherry picked four aspects which will help us in the next session. And now, if I would like to ask you in a nutshell to give us the name of your startup and the solution that you applied to something that was climate change related. For example, Feo, well, we have we love our portfolio, but I love agro analytics. This is a Malaga-based startup working mostly on LATAM, reduction the consumption of water and the water footprint, and then they ensure 30-40% reduction in the consumption of water for farmers, but also they have a market for selling and buying of resources that are similar of water footprint, and they work for the likes of Coca-Cola, Amazon, buying those water credits so that can balance out, can compensate for the water footprint of the data centers. That's a unicorn. Well, it's more of a zebra. In our portfolio, we have several, but to cherry pick one, we have this German company called 1.5. They've developed a single-use packaging substitution element that is sustainable. So they are creating any sort of plastic packaging that you can imagine, such as the one for cheese, spreadable cheese, or all the plastic capsules that you use to wash your dishes, and these are paper derivatives, not plastic derivatives. And the one that is really cool for me, I cannot mention the name yet because we are analyzing this company, but we are operational since December. Yesterday we approved the allocation of 40% of our fund, and now we are at this stage 40%. We're talking about many millions, 160 millions for you in projects that are really cool. So next year you can tell us about it. Yes, next year. So now please big it out for Orfeo, Mark, and Raul. And we have the very last session of this afternoon. I hope you've taken note of everything that our panelists said about the importance of motivation and supporting with our projects these social and environmental initiatives. And as a way of segue, we have intentionality, additionality, measurement, management of our impact. And then next up, we have Maria Cruz Conde. Please come on stage. She is here to speak about all of this. She's talking about the purpose and the intentionality, and to turn this into a reality, to see how we can be an impact company. So please allow me to introduce you very briefly. No, it will be very brief. Oh no, nothing could be further from the truth. She's head of impact analysis and measurement at Global Social Impact Investments. And above all, she will be talking about how we can boost our impact startup and to move from purpose to reality in a more practical way and shine away from things like greenwashing. So, Maria, the floor is all yours.
Bueno,
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, one and all. I hope I don't bore you because, it's a bit late in the day and you might be a bit tired, but I'd like to talk to you about how a social business goes from purpose, which is beautiful. It means living with passion and establishes a roadmap to becoming an impact company. And like with the first three speakers, I'm an impact manager at an impact asset management company. But what I do is to use purpose as a way to move forward. It's like a compass. Um, and before we discuss theory of change, additionality, intentionality, and what makes one different, I think the difference between purposeful impact companies are not born on a spreadsheet and see how you make $1 billion in 5 years, but rather it's about, having a heartache, looking around, looking at the world and saying, hey, there's a problem and I don't want to look the other way. I want to find a solution to this. And philanthropic capital is all well and good. Public capital is all well and good, but it's not enough. What if you use the market to solve these problems? And so these companies arise from problems themselves, because our heart aches when we look around. It means wanting to change things. That's a differential factor. That's the difference between an impact business and a traditional business. So let's go into practical terms. So you feel this pain, you don't want to look the other way, you want to use the market to solve shortcomings. Why? Why are we here? Why are we discussing this? Well, because the main challenges of our time, poverty, inequality, the climate crisis, we've heard depopulation, there are tons of problems, right? There's so many unemployment, youth unemployment, early school dropouts. All of these problems require new solutions, and we know that past solutions don't work because the problems remain. So a company with purpose is the key to solutions. It mobilizes talent, it innovates, but resources wants to generate a real impact. So when you take the best tools from here and there, take the best of private equity and philanthropy, and you put them to work together, beautiful solutions come about. And maybe that's how, with this impact business sectors, and we can provide solutions to those problems for which we find no solution. So an impact business, in a nutshell, is born with the purpose to solve a social or environmental problem, or both social and environmental problem, because sometimes it seems there are two different things, but there are companies that are about inclusive businesses for the base of the pyramid, for resources, projects at the base of the pyramid, and mitigates climate risks to turn things around. So what's best is when everything is included, leaving nobody behind. And they're there, they exist. And I'll give you some examples later on. And there's a room for many more examples, as Raul and Marca have mentioned. If we generate the environment and we allow for the funding. So, well, we've heard this for sure. These companies are intentional. They're additional. Additional means that your company is providing a solution that would not be ever provided if my company did not exist. So if the traditional market was getting there, then you're not that additional. You're doing what everybody else is doing. So it's trying to see how to do things differently. And we also need to be able to measure and manage this social impact, to report indicators, because KPIs should, set the direction. And if we thought that with this we would attain that outcome, you're not making it, you need to, change directions, head a different way. You got to change something, or else you'll never get there. So I think that's the reason why we're all here. So This chart is often used because they're appropriated by impact funds because they're basically social companies, and these are features that impact companies need to have because that's where funds want to invest. So purpose is always included in the business model. And so we use this tool called the theory of change. It's basically the business model written in terms of impact. It's the engine behind a company's strategy. And because Pedro asked me to discuss how to avoid impact washing or greenwashing. If it's just for show, it's no impact company. It's as simple as that. So on this chart, you can see this. You got to be as up as possible, as top as possible in terms of additionality, and towards the right, in terms of intentionality. So you have traditional companies at the lower left-hand side, and you start to transform and start adding and adding. So these impact companies contribute to solving an environmental and or social challenge that is additional, attaining results that traditional markets are not achieving, and they're measuring and managing impact. So these are elements inherent to these companies, apart from what you traditionally have, how you manage risk, competition, profitability. Because one of the main risks social entrepreneurs run is not to lose your direction, but you need capital. Raul was saying this earlier. So you need profitability because it's going to be able to place impact at the heart of everything, and it will make you sustainable, and impact will always be at the heart of everything you do. Or else you might find a very good solution, but an investor might say, yeah, but we need to do away with this or that because we need more money, and that distorts your business model and you're on survival mode. So what you need to do is to combine business and impact, walking together, entrepreneurs and investors walking together towards this impact economy. And this is what you heard earlier. Who invests in this? Well, they have to be necessarily impact investors. They're social investors too. They didn't want to look the other way. They don't want to turn their heads, and they want to solve these social and environmental problems with equity, because they mobilize capital. So these people solve problems by investing in those who can do that. So that's what this is all about. And this takes me back to what I was saying earlier. We should not only focus on ROI and impact. They need to work shoulder to shoulder. We use the best tools, the best mechanism. At my team, there are people who are experts in terms of impact, and they're experts in finance. It's all about the diversity talking together to find the best solutions. What is going to help us use this as a springboard to leap forward in terms of change. And I'm always asked to explain the theory of change, and then I get told off, and they say, "Oh, you're so theoretical." Well, should I talk about this or not? Anyway, I've been asked to tell you about the theory of change, and I think this outline is pretty straightforward, because it helps to learn what's going on in terms of impact investment, and people talk about this more and more, but really understand it less and less. So I'm going to try to explain this to you very quickly. So a social company is born from a company who has a pain in their heart. There's a problem, and they want to solve this. This is the environmental problem, social problem, and they want to place their money where their mouth is. Well, we want to solve the environment because it's important. It affects people, and we need to find solutions for both domains, the social side of things and the environmental side of things. We cannot work around one and ignore the other. So basically, we can transform a business model into a theory of change because you identify the social challenge as well as the resources to undertake and the activities. Activities are their key activities, which is the heart of the business, and then projects. And it could be a product or a service. It could be training for people at a risk of social exclusion. If it's a company that sells products and services, well, it would be those either products or services. That would be the traditional business model. For funds, it would be their investment strategy. With your resources and activities, you generate your business plan or action plan. And then you have a number of products. So what is this theory of change all about? Well, it is a causality change. If you have resources and undertaken key activities, you will generate products. With those products, which would be outputs, with those outputs, that's when where impact kicks in to be able to measure the transformation that you seek. And if you're a social entrepreneur and wish to solve a social challenge or social problem, you need to be clear on the impact that you want to generate, the effect. So you need that um, to use that lighthouse, that beam. If you feel pain when you see that so many people with a disability can't find jobs, and you want to open a company that creates jobs for people with the disabilities, that's important. But maybe you want more. Maybe you want these people to be perceived as having dignity, as being fulfilled, as in learning that they can do things on their own. Well, if that's what you're going to do, well, you want to help people who are vulnerable. You want to generate this chain. The farther the away from me it's external, when you can use maybe you cannot guarantee that everything is you're doing, but you can have outcomes. You have short-term results, medium-term results, long-term results, and you need tools to measure all of that. Hence, it being very difficult to being a social entrepreneur, you need to know the challenge. You need to gain insight. You need to be able to measure. You need to invest resources in measuring the impact, which is something that is a challenge too for social entrepreneurs, because everybody says you got to look at the impact, but nobody gives you the resources to do that. Well, indeed, it's trickier, but it's more beautiful too. So how does this help? How does this theory of change help? This chart with causality that tells you from where to start, where to reach. We need to plan strategically. You need to integrate a business model and an impact model in the same single diagram. It's easy, because you need to look at positive, negative impact, and intentional, unintentional impact. You got to measure them all, and to identify them all, because I've heard this often, and you need to need not measure the 3 KPIs that are going to make you look good. You got to measure everything to see if you're producing a negative externality. So you need to plan strategic. You need to plan and measure the impact, and you need to know how to measure this and via what KPIs. If you want to measure this or that, what indicator need I use, how often, how appropriate this KPI is, how objective it is, how easy or difficult it is to attain this. You need to be able to locate all of that. That way, it helps to make decisions. It locates room for improvement, because when you have your roadmap and with this activity, you are not attaining the outcomes that you sought. You need to rethink this and revisit this. Hey, why is this not happening? Is the action not well designed? Am I achieving an undesired effect? Should I change my action? Should I change the way I do things? Should I ask my interest group what is going on so that they can give us feedback and help us change? That's what this is used for, because one of the most essential things about this is the participation of stakeholders or interest groups. If you're helping a community but you don't ask them anything, well, you're probably not going to be solving much, because you have not asked. You do not really know what's going on. That's one of the challenges entrepreneurs have. Some people say, yeah, well, I'm seeing this is going on, but have you asked those who suffer this, who undergo this? Well, if you don't listen, you're probably not going to be able to find the best solution. So this tool is helpful for that, you need to take into account all these stakeholders, and it is of the essence to communicate, to present your impact internally, externally. As Raul was saying earlier, people want to work in purposeful companies. If somebody comes in and want to join your company, tell them what the purpose is so that they understand the identity, so that they wear your, so to speak, jersey, so that they play on your team, because you gotta tell that story. You need to make people engaged and involved, and tell people that, hey, we're family and an impact company, that we are all heading in the same direction. We all want to get to a better place, and that helps with attrition. Hence, these companies are more resilient. The turnover is lower, and when the in the face of dire straits, people are more committed. This is because you want to be in a company and know what's going on. You got to tell people what's happening. This tool helps to that. This is our theory of change. You can barely see this. It's a busy slide, but it comes to say that we asked companies to have their theory of change. We have ours, obviously, and follow this. Our problem, what we've detected as social impact companies, that there is 1/3 of the Spanish population at risk of social exclusion, and people tend to look the other way, and people say, oh, no, not that much. Well, that's what stats say. So if that is the situation, you do something. Also, there's a high unemployment rate, and we're the main generators of poor workers, and we're very vulnerable to climate change risk. So we're socially focused, but we also need to invest in companies that mitigate climate change, that are not only not harming the environment, but also they're trying to better the situation, and helps with their business model to also those at the base of the pyramid, that third of the population, the poor third. So we've identified a problem. We want to take capital equity there, look for companies that help us solve these problems. And at the end of the day, we want to improve the quality of life of those people who are vulnerable. And we use indicators, and that's what we ask companies to measure. Why? Because they are our investment criteria. If these companies can't hit these KPIs, I'm sure they may be impactful, but not the kind of impact that we're looking for. They're not really contributing to solve the social problem that we've identified. Maybe, I'm sure there are other problems too, because it's not about, oh, my company is impactful, my company is impactful, yours is not as impactful. Well, it's all about what you want to attain. And this is something that I always like to explain, and that is that impact funds generate impact and works additionality in those companies in which it's involved. So companies generate a direct impact on users, clients, beneficiaries, or the people they're catering for. So basically, together we work shoulder to shoulder with companies, because yes, we hold large shares, and we're all one team. That is just something I wanted to say, because that makes things different. And we've also been asked to give you practical examples, because that's where you better see what we're talking about. So ours is a private capital fund. We manage 63 million euro. And we look at 8 to 10 companies in our portfolio. We have 6 at the moment, and we perform a very active management, regardless of profitability outlooks, and which is important, by the way, because we mentioned that it's important to identify market flaws. What is also perpetuating problems? If we want to use the market to solve market problems, we can use a market facility. So we need to tell our investors, hey, with this, we're not only going to give you profitability, but we're going to change the world together. So that's important, but success is not only connected to profit, but also it is connected to the positive impact attained. And since you promised this to your investments, and if I don't have such a positive impact, but get a lot of money out of the investments, well, we'll have to donate all of this money to non-for-profits who really manage to do what we have not been able to do. So, and this is also good because if you see opportunities, so for example, when you do the theory of change, you might think, oh, well, this is going to cost a lot of money. Well, yes, but you need to look at the long term, because sometimes you were looking at short term and people hear, oh, with this fund you're going to get 60% profitability. Well, that could be true in the short term, but you need to look at the long term. And in order to include the impact dimension, you need tools and a rigorous impact management. So oftentimes, it's what I was saying earlier, it's like with success, you need incentives for people to comply with what you want to do. So all of this, well, our social entrepreneurs, management teams, other investors need to adhere to this impact clause. So this is the way to know that we're all rowing, headed in the same direction. What is what is a social dimension and impact? Well, these people that I've mentioned, economic and social inclusion of people who are vulnerable. So we detect companies that are helping in different ways, and indeed, social and economic inclusion of vulnerable people means our fund is agnostic. So there's not a specific for a specific community any solution that sets out to help vulnerable people is eligible for our investments. So we may decide to place our capital there. And it's just that inclusive businesses at the base of the pyramid, which is, by the way, a paper that was published tons of time ago, so it's nothing new. But apparently now the market world is realizing that that's where they need to be. So anyways, I'm talking about economic inclusion, access to essential goods and services, food, logistics, connectivity for people, because you heard that the depopulated Spain, we sometimes disregard or ignore that they need connectivity, or people with a disability, they need jobs that are fulfilling for them, access to products, quality products, to or organic products that should not be just for a few with a very high purchase power, and those same people not being able to access that. So that's what we're all about. And one of the cases I wanted to tell you about is a company called Scrubs. And it's a company that is really profitable. It's growing like market companies. I don't know what your profile is, but people like to see that the impact curve grows parallel to the P&L. And you need this because you want to fund 2, 3, or 4. That's what we would like to achieve. And public capital is all well and good to incentivize private equity too, but people are risk adverse, and we need to tell success stories so that they are to risk averted. So those who are here first would need to do this first. Well, Raul has a 400 million fund. Wow. Well, he's got to do things well because he's got to lead by example. So that's the case of Scrubs. When we met the Scrubs crowd, this was just a person who had a few outlets and 20 or 30 small stores who specialized in basic products, known brands with some 50% average discounts, So what this person would do is to purchase from large manufacturers. The latter perhaps cannot sell those products because they're out of stock or decatalogued, or the best buy date is too short. And what do manufacturers do? They burn all this, and it's terrible in terms of CO2 emissions, but this generates poverty. And so some people can't afford things, and some people are just throwing this out. So this man decided, I'm going to purchase this from large manufacturers. I'm going to save them the cost of destroying those products, and then now there are new laws in terms of food waste, and I can sell this in very cheap stores, in cheap grocery stores, because they're in lower income neighborhoods, and allow people to purchase these things, because it gives dignity to people if they don't have to go to a food bank and can go to the grocery store and buy all this. So these large manufacturers have these surplus that they can no longer sell. There's waste, the losses and pollution. Some clients have financial barriers and cannot access to ordinary products. So the solution was to bring this together, to create a network of stores with products at very, very low prices, and avoid food waste. When we came in, we thought, hey, this is an impact model, but it could have way more impact. Let's start working on this. On the one hand, indeed, this company had a more traditional fund come in that said, okay, this is all fantastic. You're giving a 50, 60, 70% discount, but if you go with 30, you're still going to sell. Well, they cannot do this, because in the shareholders agreement they signed, that the discounts have to be very, very high, so it can allow for the store to get something in terms of bottom line, but this should never be sold in high income neighborhoods, and that's the business model. Had they gone elsewhere, things would have been different. Maybe they could have driven the company in the ground. So when we say business goes hand in hand with impact, we just mean it, and you got to walk the talk. And then we produced a business plan. So all the jobs created here need to be inclusive jobs. So we signed collaboration agreements with a number of foundations, associations who work with people at risk of social inclusion or with difficulty accessing the employment market. We created a training center so we could include these people. And right now, 70% of the people who have a job at this company are at a risk of social inclusion, with barriers to access of employment because they didn't have the training, or migrants, had some sort of disability. And apart from creating jobs, quality jobs with dignity, you're helping people who are financially challenged, and you are preventing CO2 generation. And it's, I think, a very clear example. And of course, we wrote the theory of change for them. We identified the suppliers, because these are these manufacturers who would have to pay to destroy what the waste product, and you can see the positive effect. If you look at society, the environment, well, of course, you're making products available that are accessible, affordable, positive from an environmental standpoint. What about clients? Well, 30 to 40% of these companies' clients, after numerous surveys, have on average 1,000 euros, and as their wage is 1,000 euros a month for the whole household. So impact and P&L, these two curves grow parallel. But if you start to do less in terms of impact, the bottom line of the company will go down too. And this tells you that you've identified the impact well, because if the business is growing but the impact is not, it's something you didn't do well. And the opposite is also true. So these are the sales, the EBITDA, the number of stores when we came in, and the number of stores we have now. So now there are 125 stores, jobs. So every time you open a stores, you create 1.5 jobs for people with a barrier to access the job market. So the points of sale has increased threefold. The EBITDA and sales have gone up sixfold. Also, the food and hygiene products with a 50% or more discount have increased fivefold. We are contacted by more and more manufacturers, and the more this happens, the more products we have to offer. It's important because I had the Employers Association wanted us to be involved, so you can use collective bargaining to improve the working conditions of employees. So this is, what happens if you do things right. If you head in the right direction, you grow. And right now, the European Commission, they wanted somebody to represent the Spanish retail sector in Europe. I think it accounts for 16% of the jobs, so a lot. And they've asked them to be their representatives. So with El Corte Inglés, the huge department store in Supermercados Dia, huge supermarket. And why are they there as a stakeholder? Because they represented a way of doing things differently. Because size-wise, we're really proud. Some people, these guys have gone up from their turnover was 5, and it's gone up to 32 million. So 3 people representing the whole sector at the European Union, and they're one of them. Then I want to give you another example.
Teníamos, ¿no? Todas están en crecimiento.
Well, all the companies are growing. Maybe this is just a matter of luck. Maybe the tables can be turned, but this way of creating companies is here to stay as long as we still have funds to invest. So that one last mile logistic operator realized that if we continue with the last mile delivery, there would be using the usual trucks, there would be a collapse in cities, and then issue with efficiencies and pollution. And the last mile they were creating was generating what they call the false freelancers, the riders for you. But then this entrepreneur said, look, this is not fine. These people shouldn't work under these conditions. So now this is growing. We're talking about these supermarkets. And then then you're talking about phone and internet providers that are providing their services to the most remote towns in Spain, mostly the Alpujarra, south of Spain in Granada. As well, the other providers don't want to set foot in there as it's very expensive for them. We're talking about towns with 120 inhabitants, and you can give them a cable internet to the whole population, and then you can create actions with them. The depopulated Spain creates huge issues of unwanted loneliness, and nowadays not having internet is a very limiting factor. And for example, grandchildren don't want to visit the grandparents as they cannot use their smartphones or their internet, and this comes with added issues. And then we have this other company here, Exita, providing tech solutions for the waste management of products, electronic products, for example, and and appliances that affect greatly the environment. And they've created this software for people with disabilities are able to repair these appliances and devices, providing added value to a very mechanical work that is the one of people with disabilities. And they have this pilot project, and 12 people are now working in the company. But we also signed 20 agreements with special work centers so that we can double these numbers. So having these tools for the measurement of impact and being able to communicate clearly draws in many clients, and that's why it's interesting for them. And this is what I am here for. I was told to tell you how to avoid greenwashing. Is this possible? I don't know. I have contradicting messages. What's important is that this is this is communicated. If people use these to greenwashing, well, Well, maybe they come for the wrong reasons, but they stay for the good reasons. It's not important who comes, but who stays. So responsibility lies in us. We need to convince them that once you are here, you're going to stay, but you're going to be convinced, you're going to be converted. And that is the most enthusiastic thing when you find people who become converted. So let's convince them. And let's not be judgmental. Sometimes we think, oh, these people come from this angle. Let's give them an opportunity. Let's convince them they will stay. But well, you can find some warning signs. If you find empty slogans like "We make this world a better place to live in," this is not the case. Then we need promises, but they need to come hand in hand with verifiable metrics. And then sometimes they limit the impact based on the CSR actions without integrating it into the business model. You can be a wonderful company, but that doesn't make you an impact company. If this is not part of your business model, you're just another company. It's fine. Diversity is fine. But don't tell me you're not what you're not. This is not fine. That is just not fine. And then they are not able to explain which problems they are solving. This is intentional. This is born out of the intent to solve problems. And then keys to real and verifiable impact. Define the social or environmental problem you're addressing. Align the impact with the core of your business model. It shouldn't be an add-on. Apparently, it's all about theory of change. It's something that should go in line. And then you need to measure what matters with relevant and comparable metrics. And then you need to see how relevant the indicator is. If it's not relevant, well, people say there's an issue, of course, but we need to understand the context. The solution to a problem being created in Valencia is not the same that we can apply in Ghana. Maybe you need to build different roads, different ways, and then also reporting in a transparent manner. It's important, including learnings and boundaries. Sometimes you need to say, I failed, or this went the wrong way. It's fine, but you need to report what you do, and then you need to be consistent with the impact, with the internal culture, with the suppliers relationship. There are really good companies with everything we have. They have all the teams and all the HR they have inside, but they are really mean with the providers. If you don't mean your providers, well, this is not about it. So the internal culture and the way you work, I think it's important as well. And I think impact companies build stronger communities, more resilient communities, and more sustainable environments. That's how it is. Each one is an impact multiplier. It solves problems, but also it triggers structural changes. So we are looking for a systematic change, and the system doesn't work, and we want to change it. But it's better to change it from action than from criticism, and maybe we need both. But I am more on the side of action. I want everyone to join in and to be convinced. Then you transform lives, you create jobs, you inspire others. There is nothing better in life than inspiring someone. The best motto or the best that you can hear is that I believe in you. Let's believe in one another. As this goes to show that there's an economic model that is different and that is possible. And we need to fight for that. And I think instead of preaching to the converted, you need to preach to the unconverted and to bring them in, invite them. And this is a model with a guarantee of rigor and professionalism. We need to measure what is relevant, to communicate with honesty and be rigorous. Otherwise, we are creating an ecosystem that is at the risk of breaking apart. So we need to do everything right so that this not happens. And as we said before, we need strategic allies such as companies or impact investment funds, as they will help you to complete your way and help you with inclusion, with sustainable solutions, etc. And I think it means that this, in a nutshell, the future needs courageous and consistent companies. It's not just how much we earn, but the world we build while we do it. Sorry, I see I am running out of time. I'm seeing Julian giving me all sort of signs and giving you verse and chapter here. I am very sorry, but if you have questions, remarks, anything you like to share, to say, if not, well, thank you for listening. Yes, we do. A big round of applause, please. Is it an easy question or a tricky question? It will depend on the answer. So on the online, we have a couple of questions. The first one, I don't understand the name. But all these methodologies is accessible for anyone. Is there a way to access those tools? I think the tools themselves are accessible for everyone, and there's plenty of information on theory of change. And I think one of the main issues of impact is that is not standardized yet, and we've built our own methodology where we use various tools, instruments for each stage of the process of investment for the company. There's plenty of literature and very accessible, and I can share it with you, of course. And then ours is on our impact report, and we break it down very easily. Okay, that was the easy question. Now we go for the tricky one from Darren Groke. AI is as good as data. A great part of this data is created by companies, and these are not available for AI systems to embed them. How can the situation change with impact investment? Well, if I understand this correctly, they mean that public companies have public data. And here we are talking about non-asset markets. When we're talking about asset markets, yes, we have plenty of information. And then you have the financial reports that are needed for big companies. I think we are talking about small companies yet. And until we see these zebras, we will still need this information. There's plenty of market research done on impact, for example. Maybe, Raul, you know more than I do. If the question is how we access data, because I mean, changing AI to embed information, well, let AI study the impact reports published by companies. This is the only option we have until we have plenty of zebras and plenty of public information. Yes. And until the AI systems can embed that, yes. So what we need to do as consumers is to use impact companies to help them grow. That is the takeaway message. Thank you. And lastly, we have David Rosa, who is Director for Innovation at the Valencia Innovation Lab. And on behalf of the Council of Valencia,
¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes.
he has some closing remarks. I'm going to take just 5 minutes to welcome you all to Valencia. We know you come from various countries, and I hope that this afternoon and this evening you enjoy the city. And also, let me thank you for choosing the Center for Innovation of our City Council for this event. Let me tell you in a nutshell about our strategy.
Desde el Centro de Innovación de la...
From our center, or under the umbrella strategy that is the Valencia Innovation Capital for you, so that we can put a name to it. and we focus on the expansion to in various countries. Well, we've defined how we will use the innovation coming from the city council to create this impact side you are interested in. And it is of the utmost importance for us to know that the evolution and everything that is innovation, and mostly tech-related innovation, shouldn't neglect people, shouldn't leave behind people. We are a city council, and our main customers or clients are our citizens. And of course, we have PPP, and we work with all the companies and with all the organizations that are needed, but always keeping in mind that the idea is to improve the life of people living in our city. And what are we doing that might be more special, if you like, than in any other city? As all cities are trying to improve the quality of life of their citizens. Well, we are trying to make it very easy to come to Valencia to try out new solution impacting on the life of people. We've used this instrument, the urban sandbox, that basically well, through regulations, local regulations, we put at the disposal of anybody, any organization or company, more than 140 resources coming from the city. And there you can find transport services, sporting premises, centers for the elderly, housing, school centers. Then there's plenty of infrastructures under this umbrella initiative where various companies, organizations can try out their solutions. This might simple to do, but for your standard company or a standard body trying to negotiate trying to navigate through all the licensing and all the permits to then trying out a solution in a school center, for example, might take them 5 to 6 different processes. That is negotiating with education, public transport, and we've just tried to simplify, to streamline that process. So we have this one-stop shop where you fill out a form and any organization or company can specify which urban resource they need. We're talking about school centers, lighting, transport, benches, gardens, parks, where they would like to try out their solution. They describe what they want to try out. So we select that information, we turn around, and then all those urban resources are pre-validated by the municipal services that are part of the city council. We have more than 5,000 employees, therefore a big city council. And within 15 days, we provide you with an answer, and we tell you whether what you want to try out can be tried out. And if the answer is yes, which are the conditions? When? And if you need some sort of retrofitting or adaptation. Since we launched that is 6 months ago, we had more than 40 requests. Out of them, 11 are already at full steam. And as a city, I think that is what we can contribute with, that is different to what maybe other cities are doing, as we are all fighting against CO2 emissions, and then we are fighting for the improvement of the air quality to reduce the temperature of our city, especially the heat islands in Valencia are a very important issue. And I think with this innovation instrument, we are helping people from all over Europe to come to Valencia to try things out. So Valencia is becoming an easy city for this sandboxing. And also this allows our municipal services to get to know solutions which if it wasn't for this procedure would have never been in Valencia. They would have remained elsewhere in Europe. So I invite you as a part of this consortium and these solutions that you will see tomorrow and the challenges that you've defined. And if you want to try it out, try it in your cities, but also here in Valencia. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, David. Y simplemente
Thank you, David. Just for you to know, they have an autonomous beach cleaning system has kicked off. For a very small company of 4 or 5, there's a lot of red tape. Well, Valencia City Hall is helping so that they can test the waters and see if the technology works and so on and so forth. So having said that, we're going to call it a day. See you back tomorrow. We have some 30 speakers with their solutions. We have challengers, people who've identified how to solve a challenge. We'll hear all about that tomorrow. We have a content filled day with tons of solutions from 8 countries. So partners, challengers, solvers here. Let's just go outside to the photo call, take a group picture, and then we have some networking outside. Thank you all very much.